LLC, Pest Geek Podcast, Living the Wildlife Podcast, Stephen M. Van Tassel, or their or his affiliates are not responsible for followers' use of the information provided here. Hi, everyone. Stephen Van Tassel here, wildlife control consultant, bringing another episode of Living the Wildlife as part of the Pest Geek Podcast family. Hey, we're glad to have you on board. I hope your week went well. Mine is, I'm recording now here on a Tuesday, so my week has obviously been pretty busy, and I haven't even gotten to Friday yet. But nevertheless, we're glad you're here. Do take a few moments, if you would, to give us a 5-star review, ring the bell, and subscribe to the channel. And then if you have criticisms, comments, suggestions for shows, perhaps you want to be on the show, you can reach out to me at wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com. Because otherwise, if you don't tell me what you want me to talk about, I'll talk about what I'm interested in, and they may not coincide. So, and then of course, yes, even criticisms, you can send me some of those. Some of you are gracious enough to send me some comments, and certainly those that are constructive are certainly appreciated, to be sure, because that means you're listening, because we want to make sure this is relevant to you. Do join us on Facebook on the Pest Geek Podcast group. We're glad to have you there. Talk about your triumphs and trials, and of course, ask questions to help you run your business. Well, enough of the intro here. I wanted to get to our guest. His name is Raleigh Calzadilla. Hope I got that right. Calzadilla. He is the owner, manager of Pest Wildlife Pro. That's pestwildlifepro.com. And he's based in Lower Miami, Florida. And he is a specialist in bird control. I know that birds are certainly a major problem for many wildlife control operators, because they're just so mobile and they get into places and there's heights and it's expensive. And well, you know far more about, and then the poo and all that kind of stuff. So welcome, Raleigh. We really appreciate you being on the show today.
Thank you, Stephen. Glad to be here. Hi, everybody.
Tell us a little about yourself.
So I fell into the bird control business through pest control. Before pest control, I was in construction. I have a general contractor license, and things weren't going well with construction during that time. The late '00s, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know what we call it, late.
The turn of the century. The recession, the Great Recession. Right. Okay.
So I'm just trying to rebrand myself, and fell into pest control. Fell in love with it. And when I started learning about birds, I'm like, wow, everybody talks about how difficult it is. And it kind of came easy to me because of the skill set that I brought from a previous life. And so working with a company that no longer exists, started with a company called Steritech. They were out of
Steritech. Okay.
And did 3 years with them. Felt like I wanted to go more in the wildlife side of the business instead of the pest control. So back in '08, I started a company called Bird and Bee Removal, and ran that for 8 years until 2015. And then I had an opportunity to go back to work for Steritech and be their wildlife guy here in Florida. And it was a great opportunity. I closed down the business and went to work for them. Then they got bought by Rentokil.
Right.
Then I went to go work for Copistan. They got bought by Terminix. Got bought by Rentokil.
So you have seen a little bit of merger activity in your
the word on the street is, if you want your company bought, hire me.
That's hilarious.
Literally,
you never know. Do you want your business sold? Hire Raleigh, and that'll make sure you get a good price too.
So the funny thing is, so before Rentokil bought Terminix, I started this business called Pest Wildlife Pro. Been doing it for the last 2.5 years, and having a lot of fun. Definitely doing a lot more than birds, which is my specialty. But today we're gonna talk a little bit about birds. So I get asked a lot of questions of how to find a solution for birds, how to get to there's so many options available. And if you want to be good at bird work, you have to have a lot of tools in your tool belt.
Right.
So I'm open to every solution or option out there for bird control. And but how do you narrow it down? So I asked the customer 4 key questions. The first one really doesn't have to do with the solution, but I think it's a very important question. It should always be the first question. Why are the birds being a pest? Because that way the customer is going to tell you what their pain point is, what's hurting them, what their hot buttons are, and then that'll kind of help you drive the solution as well. So the next question, really the first question in finding the solution, is who is the bird species? Who's the bird? So what is the bird species? You have to learn how to identify birds. There's a lot of tools out there for identifying birds is actually a really cool one I recently found. I'm just going to look it up here on my phone real quick so I could talk to you about it. It's called Picture Bird.
Picture Bird. It's an app for
it's an app for your phone
and iPhone.
Yep. I think it costs like $40 for the year, but you literally take a picture of a bird and it shoots you back the identification.
Wow.
If you don't see the bird, but you hear it, I tried it with a blue jay. I recorded the sound and it came back and it identified the bird for me from sound.
No kidding.
I thought that was amazing.
That is pretty good. Yeah.
So you have to.
A little scary as well when you think about it, but
man, cool. There's some serious technology out there. So you have like an fucking dog.
Okay.
So when you identify the bird, it's like anything else in pest control. So if you're in the pest control side of the business, the first thing you want to do is identify the insect or the pest. So it's no different with birds. So identify the bird. Because that's also going to determine, it's going to narrow down your solutions quite a bit depending on the species and depending on the protection status of the bird and the seasonality of the bird. So your next is what? So aside from asking the customer, what is the bird that's making it a pest? What do you see that the bird is doing that is making it a pest? So what is the bird's behavior? What is it doing? And then the last one is where? Where is this bird behaving badly? So it could be in a covered area and an open area. It could be inside, outside. It could be under a pole barn. Where? Because the where is also going to narrow down the solutions. So understanding that, then you go from 50 potential solutions down to 3 or 4, and then you focus on those 3 or 4, and maybe you use 2 or 3 of them in combination, affecting different senses of the bird in different ways. One could be a physical removal, or one could be exclusion. One could be a hazer that affects them in their senses when they smell it or when they taste it, and another one could be visual when they see the solution. So combine different solutions based on the who, the what.
So in your experience, the jobs that you're doing, are you finding that you have to use, that's rare for you to use a single tool? Are you usually using multiple tools? By that I mean, I would treat like netting as a separate tool from spikes or some sort of repellent device. So you would use, so you're saying we need to be sure that we're not getting so focused on a one-trick pony.
Yep. You
got to really be beyond. So what are the big 5 tools that you think cover the vast majority of jobs, or is that just a stupid question?
No, there are no stupid questions. Obviously, you mentioned netting. I think the golden rule for netting is if it can be netted, it shall be netted.
Okay, I like that.
It's the best solution out there when installed properly, and when sold to the customer properly. There's a lot of bad vibes about netting out there because some end user customers think, oh, it looks ugly, because they've seen a lot of ugly nets installed out there, especially over signage.
Yeah.
But if you do it right, if you do it square, you do it tight, it actually looks very good.
I agree.
So netting, now you can't always net. So, you have other options. I think optical gel is a great solution.
You really like optical gel?
I like it. If I got to install 1,000 optical gel pucks versus 5,000 square feet of netting, I'll probably go with the 5,000 square feet of netting.
Yeah.
Now, here's what happens. You net off. For practical reasons, you can only do the net so low and in certain and in so many areas.
Right.
So you're covering their primary nesting, perching, roosting sites. But when you move these birds, particularly pigeons, they're very persistent to stay where they are. So you might have to they're going to find secondary perches, at least temporarily. So you might have to put a couple optical gel pucks on some wall lights or some different areas below the net where they weren't there before, but they're going to be there now. So as a professional, you anticipate these situations and you include them in your proposal. It's kind of like an A, B, C.
Yeah. So when you're evaluating a site, so you were talking about the where, and I love your 4 questions. So when you're evaluating that where, you as the professional need to think the next step. Okay, if I remove the birds from here, unless you kill them, of course, but I mean, if you're pushing them somewhere else, you got to think about, is the next place going to be a problem for my client? And so you need to think about where would they might go that would might anger my client. So that would be
and there's even two ways to look at it, right? The next place that they would go within the area that you're covering, and the next place that they would go within the structure, the facility,
right. Okay.
The entire place. So yeah, just think a few steps ahead, because then you're creating yourself opportunities for future growth in your business.
So you like netting, you like optical gel. It's good to hear that, because you just see stuff that's advertised and you're like, it just seems just too good to be true, right?
Well, but the thing is with optical gel, if you don't clean and sanitize the way that they teach you how to do it, then don't say it didn't work.
Right. Follow the directions, everybody.
Yeah.
Follow the directions.
And if you get cheap and you space them too far apart, because it's an optical illusion. Birds are smart. So if you space them too far apart and you give that bird a place to stand between them, then it's going to look down and go,
left.
They figure it out. So follow the directions. I think with anything. Another good solution, another solution that I like, and I see it's got potential, is the lasers from Bird Control Group. So the AVIX autonomous, and they're handheld, but they're species specific. If you got
really,
pigeons, I think so. I mean, if you got pigeons nesting somewhere, and you point the laser at them while they're nesting, they're not going to move. But if they're just loafing or roosting, so it depends, again, the bird, what it's doing, and where. So you might have an airplane hangar that has pigeons in it. So netting the entire hangar for the customer is cost prohibitive, let's say $250,000.
Right.
But if you come in and you net the primary, you do strategic netting, you do netting over the entrance and on the pockets where the doors nest.
Yeah.
And then you put lasers inside on each side, scaring the birds out, then you could probably solve the problem with $75,000-$80,000 versus $150,000, for example.
And how long do you have an idea how long those particular lasers, because those are sort of mounted and they go through a random pattern, or are they motion censored?
No, you program them.
Okay.
So you create a program to do a certain movement, and then you create another program to cover another area, or you overlap them. But then the system itself, so the program inside the laser, randomizes all those little modules that you create.
Oh, okay.
So the more little modules that you create of 20, 30, 40 points of movement, then the system randomizes them. So if you have 10 of them, it's not going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4. It'll go 1, 3, 5, 2, 4.
Right.
It'll just randomize them. So the birds are less likely to get used to it. With birds, you never say never, and you never say always.
Well, right, but it gets to a point, and especially if you're excluding them from the high pressure areas that are really difficult, where maybe they could hide from the laser, then now they're fully exposed.
Right. So that's why you do strategic netting in the areas of the highest pressure.
Okay. And so, what's your fourth item?
So I'm pretty excited about a product that I'm repping for Roth Chemicals. So Roth Chemicals is the manufacturer of methylene threnolate.
Okay.
So they're the ones that make the Eco 4.0 and the Eco 14.5, which are used in the hazers, or they're used for hazing or for either thermal or ULV fogging.
All right.
And they just came out with a new product. I'm going to try to show it here with.
All right. Look at it. Eco Bird 14.5.
Bird repellent.
Bird repellent.
So it's a bird repellent in a can that shoots like a can of wasp spray, about 20 feet.
Oh, that's a lot of pressure. Yeah.
Yeah. So pretty cool. So the website for it is birdhazercan.com.
All right, let's get that. birdhazer.com.
Birdhazer can.
I gotcha. Sorry, birdhazercan.com. Okay.
And it's a good option for spot treatment. So you might have a small situation. It's something that every technician can carry in their vehicle. You could also, so you're familiar with that gotcha sprayer pole attachment that you put it on an extension pole to shoot wasp spray.
Sure.
So this is compatible with that. So now you get an extra 20, 30 feet of height plus the 20 feet that it shoots.
So if you needed to move birds out of a particular area, maybe before you're going to do some netting, you're like, they're just hanging out and they're being a pain and you got to get them going.
Or you're almost done with the netting, you haven't completely closed it off and you need to flush them out. It's kind of like a flushing agent too.
Yeah.
Or if you're trying to trap sparrows inside a grocery store, for example, and they're hiding from you, and you have the mist nets, and they're hiding somewhere, you want to flush them out. So this is food grade. So the label is pretty liberal, could be used indoors, outdoors. So read the label, obviously, the label is a law, but it's pretty liberal, and there's a potential lot of good uses for it. So I'm pretty excited about this product.
Yeah, so let's get that mentioned again. So Bird Hazer Can, CAN.com. So Bird Hazer, that's HAZERCAN.com, is a nice product. Remember, you're probably going to need to get a pesticide license. For those of you who don't have it, get it. You need to get your pesticide license and make sure you're insured and follow your state rules. And then this is another tool in the toolbox you need to want to check out. Excellent.
Yeah, and it's also available at Animal Traps and Supplies at ATS.
Okay. ATS?
Yeah, ATS is carrying it.
All right. Animal Trap Supply. That's ATS. Okay. Excellent. Well, that can be quite useful. So are there any other places where you have that flushing agent? I mean, certainly, yeah, because there are places where a laser won't work, right? Because if the bird's hiding in around a corner, the laser is not going to work. So you could flush that bird out, and then
a laser you might not have a laser because of the cost of the laser is pretty substantial. Right. So it's something that you could carry in your truck, and it's a good low cost. I call it a low cost trial and error solution. It allows for a little trial and error because the can retails for $50 a can, and by the time you buy a case, the cost could go down into the $25 to $30 range.
Sure.
So they're reasonably. It's if you use it and you solve a problem for a customer and you're charging $250, then you have more than pay for itself.
Absolutely.
But you have to manage the customer's expectations and allow for a little trial and error. It's not an absolute like netting. If you net it right, the birds aren't coming back. Right. Unless of course some electrician comes and cuts your net.
That's good. Right. Absolutely. And what do you have for number 5?
So number 5, I've been thinking about it.
Okay.
And I like the eagle eye.
The eagle eye. Oh, no kidding. Okay.
I like the visual. So again, depending on the bird species, it works pretty good with grackles. And but again, if you people always tell me, oh, it doesn't work because there's a pigeon standing right next to it. It's not intended to work when the bird is standing next to it. It's intended to scare the bird when it's flying. So it sees a reflection, kind of like the same as the woodpecker intimidators.
Okay.
It's a spinner. It reflects light. So these birds that we consider pests are prey birds, right? It's the opposite of a bird of prey. These birds are preyed upon by birds of prey. So these visual flashes scare the bird into thinking that there's a predator. So they're not comfortable. They can't feed. They can't keep their head down to eat, or they can't focus on the woodpecker focus on drilling the hole. So if these things are flashing around it and it's scaring the bird, eventually it's like, oh, you know what? Birds are very mobile, right? You've never seen a bird holding a sign that says, "I'm hungry, feed me." Although people feed them all the time. Birds have even the smallest bird, a sparrow, can fly 5 miles in half a day. Yeah. So they don't need our help to find food. So if they don't feel comfortable somewhere, and that's why I think that's how the visual devices work. It scares them, and they like, you know what? Now if you're trying to use an eagle eye for pigeons nesting, guess what?
Right. Now is that the triangular pyramid version? Yep. Now I've seen companies use the cup spinners. I think I've seen the Home Depot shop, but it looked like I've seen businesses installing these things before they have a problem, which I'm like, finally, someone's finally using a frightening device before the birds have habituated to the spot. And I'm thinking that's the time to really use it. I was shocked that actually companies were moving in that direction. I was stunned.
Yeah, and I would never do a frightening device depending on the bird species, unless I'm also doing population control. So if I'm, the pigeons, probably the number 1 pest bird. If you're not doing population control along with exclusion or frightening device, especially with frightening devices, you're not going to get the results.
Yeah.
It's not, there's no silver bullets. It's not a magic little wand you wave. You install the eagle eye and the birds say, oh crap, this place is scary. Let's get out of here. No, this is their home. This is where they were born, right? So a pigeon that is born in a site wants to die in a site. And sometimes it's our job just to accelerate that life cycle for them.
Your thoughts on the birth control for birds?
Oval control.
Is it oval control? Do you think that is it too slow for most clients to work, and so is it something more of a maintenance down the road? Where do you see that fitting into the model?
It's kind of like I'm cool, I'm trying to save the birds situation. You have a customer that might be, the thing is, if you got a city block and you have one building that is your customer and they have a pigeon problem, but the pigeon problem is in the whole city block or 5 city blocks, then using the oval control, you're going to solve the problem or in 2 years, you're going to solve the problem for a very large area.
Right.
And it's too expensive for that one building to do it. But if you're talking to municipalities, or you're talking to, let's say a university campus, especially what the kids don't want, the kids today are more sensitive to things like that.
That's right.
So, you set up these oval control feeding stations throughout a university campus, and you manage the customer's expectations that, hey, the population will go down over time. Now, it's not cheap either.
Right.
So, but you put it on an automatic feeder, you put it on a monthly program, and I think there's a place for it, but it's only for pigeons.
Yeah, right. I'm wondering if they're ever going to get a label beyond pigeons, but I do think that if people would, when I've talked to people about it, I'd like, hey, trap the pigeon population down. That saves you a lot of cost straight away. Yeah. And then you're feeding fewer, which reduces your daily cost, and then just use your feeding to drop the population even further. Like you can trap the dumb pigeons. You can
accelerate it. Right.
Yeah, and really accelerate it, and then you kind of split the baby there a little bit, especially if you can't do the kind of exclusion that is the platinum standard, of course.
Yeah, some people don't. Sometimes it's not practical, and sometimes it's just cost prohibitive.
Right.
Because another question that I wind up trying to find out from the customer, and this was a little harder to find out, because especially if they're being a little cryptic, is how much do you think the problem is worth? Do you have a $50,000 problem, or do you have a $5,000 problem? If I come up with a $50,000 solution, but the customer in their head has a $5,000 problem, guess what? Yeah. It's my job to sell them up, or it's my job to meet their expectations as best I can with the options I have. Yeah. And maybe I could solve the problem in their biggest pain point area for the amount of money that they have to spend. And then I tell them, because every commercial customer that I ever deal with lives and dies by their budget, because that's how their bonuses are set and all that. So when you're dealing with commercial customers, if it's not in their budget, they're not going to spend the money. Now, they're blowing their cleaning budget by keep cleaning the bird poop, and maybe they could move some of that money to the pest control budget, or whatever budget would be bird control. So it's kind of having those conversations at a business level as well.
Yeah.
And maybe put it on the budget for next year. Hey, you're going to save, you're spending all this money cleaning this bird poop every week, and then what people don't understand too is what's the opportunity cost of that. Okay, your maintenance person wastes all this time cleaning, but they're neglecting changing the filters on the HVAC equipment. Right. And then now, further down the road, you have a $20,000 expense to replace or repair your HVAC equipment.
And have you ever encountered like the disease issue? Like if someone's having to constantly be cleaning bird droppings, or if they wait so long that they now have a major accumulation, what's the potential risk if, especially if, let's say, they have cancer, or they're on one of these immune suppressing drugs, or they have diabetes, which means their immune system's not quite as good? That's the thing that kind of scares me a little bit. It's like, if you're healthy and, young and vibrant, and you're not in the wind's blowing the right way, probably nothing's going to happen. Or if it's baked in the sun and the sun's killing everything. But I'm just I'm not, have you seen that fit into the equation somewhere? Like, what about the health cost of some of this stuff?
Well, I think it's more poignant in a place that has food, right? So either food processing, food handling, food distribution, but also healthcare. So, I had a hospital that had pigeons in their parking garage where the employees parked. And when I told the director of environmental services, when I told him, what about all that bird waste that's being tracked into your building?
Into the building. Yep. Right. Yeah.
That's what sold it. That's what sold the job.
Yeah.
But it's not fear mongering, it's education.
That's correct. Yeah. But there's evidence. There's some really good research out of Chicago that showed that teachers were getting allergies from bird exposure to bird feces, even though the birds were on the other side of the window.
Yeah.
Well, I was like, that's amazing.
When you get the mites coming in too.
Yeah, it's just amazing that can happen. So without a doubt. So you do some consulting, I believe. You do some,
Yes.
You help people. So let's talk a little about that for some of our listeners who may be looking for, maybe they've got a big job, or what kind of training or consultation do you do for people? Why don't you describe that for them so they have a sense?
Yeah. So when it comes to training, there's a lot out there. Go to where you buy the product from. I think start there.
Mm-hmm.
What I also say is don't, unless they're giving you enough leads to sustain your business, explore options from other vendors. Because no one vendor has all the products for bird control, and you want to have the biggest tool belt possible. So I start there. But get training and have relationships from all the manufacturers, but they're going to train you on their products.
Right.
NACOA, National Wildlife Control Operator Association, has a good bird training. So I direct people to them as well. If they have a big, like you described earlier, if they have a big bird job that they need help with, I could come in one of two capacities. Help them price it, sell it, do it. Or come in, help them price it and sell it, and come in with my own crew and do the job as a subcontractor.
Okay, so you offer the total package. You can help them guide them in the process for converting the job to a business, to a sale,
and they're paying me for my time.
Yeah, so if you're a single person operator and you get the big hospital contract and you're like, I don't have enough employees to do this, you have someone to call right here and they will come in and do it.
And then they put a markup on it, they make money, and everybody's happy. I come in by myself or just with one person or two people, and then they have a couple of their own people, and we do a hybrid where I work with their people, and then there's a training aspect to it, a hands-on training aspect to it.
Yeah.
But if the person, like they say in Deadliest Catch, if the person's a greenhorn and they've never hung a bird net, and you want me to train you how to do an airplane hanger, it's like crawl, walk, run. You're ready. You're trying to run, but you haven't even crawled.
Right.
So, but if you have somebody that's been doing the $5,000-$10,000 jobs here and there, and knows how to start and finish the bird net job, but they want to take it to the next level, I think that's where then I come in, because your biggest savings, the biggest hit to your bottom line on bird work is labor. Yeah, driven by labor. Yeah. Because labor also affects the lift and travel. So if you're traveling and you take an extra week than you didn't expect, then you're going to pay the lift an extra week, or lifts plural, and travel expenses for an extra week. Yeah. But if you turn a 2-week job into 1 week because you learn how to work efficiently, then all that profit also goes into your bottom line. So it's expense profit, but it's all labor driven. So I think
so just to sort of put a bow on this, and just everyone, if you're a small operator, or even maybe a bigger small business where maybe you have a few employees, stop saying no for bird jobs, right? So if you have some bird jobs that are out there, stop saying no. Find people like Raleigh that can help you do those jobs, and you may be able to just simply do the referral and maybe be the face and get your markup and move on, and maybe or hang along and get some real world training. But we need to stop saying no and make those sales, because sometimes clients need to get these jobs done and they need a place to do it, and if they're comfortable with you, there's resources, and they can fly in and hit the ground running with all the expertise and make sure there's not a mistake, because the mistakes can be quite expensive.
Well, and you also run the risk. You also run the risk of getting a competitor into your account. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't do bird work, but then your competitor not only does bird work, but does everything that you do.
Right.
So that competitor goes into the customer, does the bird work, says, "Hey, you're happy with your pest control company, or your
Yeah.
the guy that does
Well,
your trapping and all that?" Sure, we are. Okay, hey, no
we
problem.
snatched
Let
that.
me do
Yeah.
this, but it's a wedge. Now they
Yeah.
got a relationship with your customer.
Yeah.
Where if you find somebody like me, for example, and it doesn't have to be me, it could be some, there's people throughout the country and
Yeah.
that do this, but that don't do the stuff that you do. They're not going to go after your customer.
Yeah. So that could even be, even if you don't do it, you also have, Raleigh is very connected. I've known Raleigh for years. He is very connected with a variety of people. So even if he's not the one on the ground, he probably knows someone who could be on the ground and get that type of coordination done. Just be sure to send him some, make sure you pay him, and don't always look for everything free, folks. He's got to make a living too. So just throwing that out there. So
The kids need shoes.
you got the kids need shoes. So where do you see, with the light of your experience, because you've been through a lot, right? You've been a contractor, you've been a construction worker, you've had your own business, now you're back into your own business again. You've been into the corporate world of pest control. Where do you see there seems to be a lot of development occurring in the bird space. Positive? Are you seeing like we're really getting some real solutions for those difficult jobs that where a net just is not cost effective?
Yeah.
Are we really getting some solutions that you think are we
I think
really
so.
moving in the
I'm
right
excited
direction?
about, I'm excited about the fact that there's a lot of training. There's a lot
Yeah.
of exposure to doing it right. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited about that. There's one of the, we talked about the 5 products earlier, and if there was a 6 or maybe somewhere in that 5, you gotta look at this new technology that Flockoff has, that electromagnetic technology. It's not going to come in and replace netting,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very that is very species specific. It doesn't work as well with the small birds, or it's even though it emits an electromagnetic field, it's also very directional. So you have to know how to point the components to make sure you're affecting the birds. It is kryptonite for seagulls.
Really?
I think it's a great solution for seagulls. So
no kidding. Okay.
it was designed for pigeons, so it's always a solution for pigeons. I've installed it for pigeons, for turkey vultures, and for grackles. And both the turkey vultures and the grackles took a little tweaking, but it worked.
But it worked.
So,
no kidding. Black vultures?
turkey vultures.
Just turkey, but not.
I don't have those here.
You don't have black vultures in Florida?
Not here in South Florida. I don't see them.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'll
have to look. I'll have to look
see
at
them.
that.
I'll see them in rural areas.
Yeah.
But in the high-rise buildings and along the Atlantic Ocean, I get calls for turkey vultures all the time. The taller the building and the top floors, those birds love to hang around those condominiums.
Interesting. And so where do you see the industry going at this point? So we're getting a lot more training and experience. I guess you're saying that, bird control work seems to be getting done, I would assume, better.
Yes.
Where the quality has gone up. And so what's the next big need now in the industry as you see it? What if you could wave a magic wand and we're going to invent a tool, what would that tool be?
Oh, for me as an applicator, the anti-gravity boots.
That would certainly save a lot of falls, I'm sure.
Oh my God. But all kidding aside,
that's serious.
I don't see a magic bullet in the future or silver bullet. I see better trained professionals using all the tools effectively or more effectively using the tools in the right combinations. You have, but understanding the why, the who, the what, and the where.
Do you think we'll ever get rid of perch back? You remember rid of bird? Or called toxic perch. It used to be it'd be a metal tube with a wick inside. So when the birds landed on it, they would absorb the pesticide through their feet.
I've heard about that. That was before my time.
And then keel over.
Not in our world, not in this country. we haven't talked about Avitrol. I think there's a place for Avitrol.
Okay.
Avitrol has, Sheldon at Avitrol has really taken the baton.
He has.
And done this training and the stewardship program and gone with the Avitrol Easy Blend, teaching people that you never throw it straight. It was never on the label, but the label allows for a much higher dosage than he is even recommending in training. They're training people use it at 40-1.
That's amazing. Yeah,
I've heard that flock dispersal effect.
I've heard 50-1. I've heard that he's even had clients who've had no mortality.
Yeah, I've done it. No mortality.
You've done it. Oh, no kidding. Yeah. Oh, wow.
I'll use the Avitrol Easy Blend for either sparrows, pigeons, starlings. Even though a pigeon will eat a whole corn and a sparrow won't, a pigeon will eat the grain. So if you just use the grain, and I've used it at 40-1, and I've had a combination of both pigeons and house sparrows in a job. Nice. Where after I do the first application, after I do all the pre-baiting, the first time I go hot, those sparrows have disappeared, and then the pigeons take a second, third, and maybe a fourth application.
Yeah. So you just simply apply a little bit more often rather than trying to hit them with that, 5% population kill where people were doing before, where they're getting that 20% kill sometimes, and birds flying, dropping out of the sky, people are screaming. Exactly.
I tell people all the time when I'm trying to sell them on an app, and what I wanted to circle back to your point is, it's hard to sell people on Avitrol at the 40-1, doing it the right way, the way that I'm doing it. Imagine trying to sell people on what you described earlier. That stuff's, it's like going back to using Dursban.
Yeah.
For bugs. We're not. Our society's not there anymore.
Yeah, Avitrol's really come a long way, and I think that and I just wonder, and I don't make any money on this, folks, just throwing it out there. I don't make any money on this. I want to see tools stay in the industry, and so I was really pleased that with Avitrol and other pests, because it really did get some bad reputation from some incidents that occurred that made the news, and birds are dropping out of the sky, and people were using it like an avicide rather than a repellent, which is a frightening device, which is what it was actually designed for.
Flock dispersal.
Yeah, flock dispersal, and that people were just, he's come a long way trying to change that mindset.
Yes, but the thing is, you have to peel the onion. So we get it. People like you and me get it. Operators are being. There's been a lot of training to get operators to get it. But then you got to peel the onion a little more. How do you get the customer at the local, at your level, to get it? And then even more difficult to convince is the decision maker, the boss of the boss of the boss of the boss of the person that you're talking to, who wants to protect their brand at all costs. They're very risk averse. And so, how do you get them to understand that if Avitrol is used effectively, it's no kill, and it's effective, and it's also very cost effective?
Yeah, I think the answer to that is, this is something that I've spoken frequently about, and that is wanting trade organizations to begin the lobbying process. Unfortunately, I have not been able to convince trade organizations training is important. I'm a fan of training, but there's more to a trade organization than simply creating qualified workers. We need someone that's going to have the time to lobby government, to create white papers, to respond to news reports, and there doesn't seem to be any interest in that whatsoever. And I've been arguing for that for years, and I can't seem to get any traction. Then people are like, why do we have all these problems? Because some of these problems are political and educational in nature, and no company is going to spend the time and the money to do that, because everyone says, well, it's just self-serving. I mean, look at what the pest control world does. They have organizations where they're putting out press releases. Now, they're granted a lot bigger. They can do TV ads, but there's a lot of small things that the state associations can do to try to push back. No one will do it. And I think it's
here in Florida, FPMA does work pretty well. We had Fish and Wildlife put out meetings about redoing the trapping laws and all that, and they were pretty active. They were pretty active. So
that's what's necessary, but it's so slow, isn't it?
It's a lot of work, and it's
painful and slow. And I get it. But the point is that you have to till the field in order to protect the future of the industry. I mean, and that's what, and we're not seeing the longer term picture. We need to be thinking more strategically rather than simply tactically. And so,
well, and what happens too is, for every person like me, an operator that was at this meeting, for example, for the Florida Fish and Wildlife for Trapping, for every one of us, there was 5 people that were completely against trapping birds because or not birds, I'm sorry, animals in general.
Right.
Because
because you're a murderer.
You're right. And so all extremes are bad extremes.
Yeah, and that's
and sometimes they're the ones that are driving the agenda.
They absolutely are. And it's in that sort of thing. But that's a little off track here, but it gets into one of my favorite hobby horses. So let's try to anything that we didn't talk about that you think is important for our listeners who are getting into bird control. You've given them those 4 important questions. I think that's absolutely critical. Now, if you didn't hear it, you need to go back and listen to it again, because that is gold right there, folks. It's going to save you a lot of pain. But is there something else? What would be some advice that you'd say if you're getting into bird work, do this or avoid this? What would be a tip you'd give them before we finish up here?
Well, before you get into it, make sure you know what you're doing. Trial and error with bird work in general is very expensive. So you don't want to, and you don't want to ruin your reputation as an operator in the other verticals that you do to then screw up bird work. Yeah. So there's a lot of resources out there. Ask for help. I can be one of those resources for you, but I'm not the only resource. So, go on Facebook. There's a lot of groups, wildlife control business builders. NACOA has several groups, chats. Ask questions in there. There's a lot. You're going to get some kooky people giving you some stupid answers sometimes, but eventually you'll find somebody that'll give you the right answer, and you can network. Join these organizations, network, get trained. Don't wing it. It's too expensive to wing it. Birds are too smart. Know your birds. One of the things I want to tease before we wrap this up is there's a lot of books in the industry for the bugs, for the pest control, the Malice Handbook. And, within that, the Mouse Handbook, there's one chapter for vertebrates, and then within there's a few pages for birds.
Yeah, it's like,
right. And there's a lot of other books out there for birds, for bird watching, for bird lovers. They got beautiful pictures of all the birds, easy to identify them. But there's really no one pest control bird book that I've ever been able to see that really has that level of that substance. So I'm in the process, with a little help from some other people, of writing a book that I'm probably going to call the Pest Bird Handbook.
The Pest Bird Handbook. Okay.
150 to 200 pages. Doesn't have to be full of colorful photos, because there's plenty of those in the books that people can buy for bird loving. Yeah. But a lot of, I want to write a book and put it out there to help answer that question, that previous question that you had. I want to do bird work. I'm getting started. How do I hire the right people? Because you may, your route technician, if you're a pest control company and you want to get into bird work, your route technician that says, this is what I do at 8 a.m. on the third Thursday of every week. And, they're very, very structured. Your personality for a person that does bird work is, I don't want to live the same day twice.
Right.
And they have to be, you can never be afraid of heights.
No.
And you have to be good with tools, and you have to have a very high safety IQ. So it's a very different work. So you just have to go down to that level. Do I have the people in my organization that have these skill sets? And if not, can I afford to hire them? Or do I sub it out? Or do I sub it out for a while, build my team, and then grow into it? There's a lot of options out there, but know it.
So you're looking to make this a business owner's guide to both the business portion of the business as well as the technical portion of the business. Okay. Yeah. Correct. I don't think there's anything that mixes both of those elements out there that I'm aware of. Yeah. No. Fascinating.
And it could also be, somebody who's a chief engineer at a big facility, and they have questions about birds, and there's like, hey, this let me read this book. At least, we want to educate the end user as well, but it's more definitely an operator book.
Yeah,
it's very technical.
Yes, because an educated end user is a better customer.
Right. And it's not a substitute to training either. The book is not a substitute to training.
Right.
Now, a book like that in combination with training, and that's
without a doubt,
like a college level course for bird control.
Excellent. Well, I will look forward to it. I certainly want to do a review of it. So let me know when that's as you're progressing on. I'll definitely want to read.
Yeah, it's going from here to here.
Yes, I understand. It's but there's people who do ghostwriting, and so there's a lot of ways to skin that skin that cat. So, well, everyone, we hope you've enjoyed this. Did you have something more to say?
Man, thank you for the opportunity, and I'm glad we were able to do it. I know you've been after me for a while.
Little while, yeah. So I'm glad we were able to connect up. So you've been listening to Raleigh Calzadilla. He is the owner manager of Pest Wildlife Pro. That's Pest Wildlife Pro, and you can visit him at his website at pestwildlifepro.com, where he can provide you some consultation if you wish, some training if you wish, and then also he can bring his team to do the job for you or with you, whatever the situation. So stop saying no about different bird jobs. So he can be definitely a resource for you that you want to check that out. So definitely, that's Raleigh Calzadilla, again, owner, operator, and manager of Pest Wildlife Pro, pestwildlifepro.com. Raleigh, thank you so much for being with us today. Really appreciate it. So, well, everyone, that's the end of this particular show. You've been listening to Living the Wildlife. Don't forget, take a few moments to subscribe to the channel. If you have questions, concerns, you can reach out to me at wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com. That's wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com. And you've been listening to Living the Wildlife. Why do we call it Living the Wildlife? Because we want you to be the wildlife. Excuse me, live the wildlife, not be the wildlife. I'll get that out eventually. All right, take care, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.